I'm Dr. Jodi Richardson, and you're listening to, well, Hello Anxiety, a podcast where we end the struggle with anxiety and build our toolkit of practical skills to thrive. Hello, everyone. Oh my goodness, I am recording with a very special guest who is joining us all the way from Norway. So I'm recording in the afternoon here in Australia, and our guest, Dr. Torkil Færø, is in Norway very early in the morning. And so we have worked out a time that we can connect so that we can bring you his expertise in an area that I am fascinated by, and I've got a lot of questions to ask, so I want to dive right in. Our guest today, Dr. Torkil Færø, has been a doctor for over 25 years in Norway and in other parts of the world as well. In the time that he has been a general practitioner, an emergency physician, he's seen, I guess, a whole generation through in terms of their health and well-being and through his practice. And he's seen a real change in the disease landscape, which is something that's really important for all of us listening now. He is also super talented, a documentary filmmaker, an award-winning photographer, and an author. He speaks a number of different languages and was actually among one of the first Norwegian medics to join Doctors Without Borders, working in war-torn Angola in 1996. So his work really focuses on the importance of managing stress, improving sleep, and optimizing diet and exercise. And his latest book is called The Pulse Cure. And we're going to be talking a lot today about stress, about the nervous system, but also about the wearable technology that we can take on board, buy and wear, and understand much more about what's happening in our nervous system, so we are better equipped and more informed to make really good decisions, and to see what our decisions that we are making, see how they're actually impacting on our stress and our recovery. So, Dr. Færø, a very, very warm welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jodi. So great to be here talking to Australia. Yeah.
Oh, so good. And I have had the pleasure of visiting Norway. When I was doing my PhD, I travelled to a conference in Oslo and I just loved it. So it's nice to hear the accent again, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I had a great time in Australia many, many years ago in 91, traveling around the Eastern Circuit from Melbourne up to Alice Springs, Ayers Rock, and out to Townsville and the Whitsunday Islands and down to Sydney again. So it's a great country you have.
It is, and it's a big country, isn't it? Were you surprised by the size?
Yes, actually. It took a lot longer time driving than I would ever have thought. So it's a huge country.
Yes. A friend of mine is an Asia Pacific communications manager and does a lot of travel through Europe. And she said that last week she was driving for 4 hours with some colleagues and they went through 3 countries in Europe, and it's very different, different. So,
yes, absolutely.
Yes. So thank you again for joining us here. I'm really keen to dive in. And I guess I want to start by, I've heard you say in previous work that while once the threat to our health was external in terms of infection, the threat is different now in terms of what's really impacting our health, our well-being, and our longevity. Can you talk a bit about what that threat is and what contributes to it?
Yes, that threat is too much inner stress. And from the early days, from the hunter-gatherer times, throughout hundreds, thousands of years, all the threats came from the outside, from animals, from infections, from fighting, from wars, and so on. And you could get infections, and of course we have vaccines, and we have antibiotics, and we have clean water and foodstuffs, and so on. But now, 80% of the diseases that we are treating as doctors comes from a chronic low-grade inflammation, which is based on too much stress on our bodies and brains, more than we are made from. And we're also in many ways weaker than they used to be, because we were more outside, under the sun exposure, we were moving, we were sleeping at night and so on. So we're also kind of physiologically weaker, in confronting those inner stressors that we see every day, in the modern world. And the stress comes from so many sources, and they are detectable by the heart rate. So that is why the heart rate monitors, the wearables and smartwatches, can detect the stress levels in our bodies.
One of the things that I've thought a lot about wearables, and I've in the past worn a Fitbit, and I have a lot of training in exercise physiology as well, going back into my early undergraduate days and some of my postgraduate studies as well. And so I've done a lot of testing on bodies. And one of the things that I've struggled with a little bit is, well, first of all, I had a Fitbit, then that died, and then I got a Garmin, and that's actually not working now, and I'm in the market for something new. But also as a person who lives with an anxiety disorder, I know how important, and we're going to talk in more depth about this today, I know my sleep really affects my mental health and my mood. And one of the things in particular I know with the wearables is that we can get information about a whole range of different aspects of our physiology. And I'm concerned that I might become a bit over anxious and over kind of cautious about the data, and then maybe drive results that are against what I'm looking for. Maybe start to worry about sleep if I can measure it and see it's not as quality sleep or as quantity sleep as I might like. Is that something that you've come across before in your work? Somebody who feels as though, oh goodness, if I track it, that's important, but am I going to sort of get kind of drawn in by the data in a way that it's going to drive more stress?
Yes, that's often a fear that many people have. But once they start tracking, they see that they have more control of this than they feared. And of course, in the beginning, it's kind of new, it's different. They may be overly obsessed about it, but I will compare it to having your dashboard in your car. So suddenly get your dashboard into your own physiology, and you can see your physiological intensity and speed. And usually it's the too much stress during the day that will be carried over into the night that will affect the sleep quality. And once you start getting the tools on how to mitigate that stress, then it becomes easier. So most people will find that they have the control enough to be able to do something about it. Because and then I'm talking about really the Garmin watch, which can, see the stress levels throughout the 24/7. You can identify, for example, a period of the day that you have been eating something and you have reacted to it, and then the stress levels goes up. So it doesn't tend to be a big problem, really. But for some people, yes, it may be. But then it should be able to solve that also, to be able to, over time, get used to it.
Yes, I appreciate that I'm not the only one who's sort of felt like that. And it is something I'm actually going to be investing in. And I think our conversation today will help me to make a bit of a decision about what it is that might be the right choice for me. Before we talk a little bit more about the different types of devices and why they are so powerful in helping us understand what's happening in our nervous system and our stress, I'd love you, if you wouldn't mind, telling us a little bit about kind of your health journey, because you made some significant changes, didn't you, on the passing of your father when he died at, what was the age of, about 73?
Yes, he was 73 when he died. And at the time, I also am a member of the My Heritage, where you can see your family tree online. And I could see that I didn't get anything for free when it comes to genetics. So they were all dying at, almost none of the men in my family got over 80. So I wanted to continue, of course, my traveling, my photography, living an extensive life, and seeing the whole world, which I was doing. And I realized when I looked in the mirror that I started to look more like my patients. Mm-hmm. I was 20 kilos overweight, 40 pounds overweight. I did not exercise, did not care what I was eating, or sleeping. You could sleep when you're dead, that kind of a mentality, And I saw that if I continue like this, I may not live as long as I could. And I started reorienting myself and looking at the latest research and books on how to improve your lifestyle. And I saw that there was so much new information compared to when I studied in the 90s. So I changed my life, lost weight, started exercising, started caring about the diet and sleep and so on. And after some years also, I was aware that we had these wearables, that we had this possibility to check our autonomic nervous system by heart rate variability. And that helped me further, to do the right things, because we're so lucky that whatever you do that is good for your body tends to be shown in the heart rate. And whatever you do that is bad for your body tends to be shown also. So suddenly you have this kind of physiological speedometer that can help you make the right choices. And it also gets more motivating to do that when you see the results, and in clear numbers and graphs.
Yes, and you shared a fabulous video with me that showed so much evidence from the wearable technology that shows in, particularly with the Garmin, which has the 24-hour cycle, and I'll ask you more questions about the other wearables as well, but it's evident in the data where, as you were saying, if you had a cold shower or if you had eaten something or if you'd done exercise, and you can't argue with the numbers. And like you say, you start to understand what patterns and what's affecting you. And therefore, you've got more information about where you can make really meaningful change quite quickly, I imagine.
Yes, absolutely. You can identify surprising sources of stress. And for me, for example, that is chili, for example. So when I eat a meal of chili, I get stressed way into the night. And that actually happened yesterday. I was out with some friends, a real nice meal, but they don't put chili in the ingredients, because nobody are allergic to chili.
Yeah.
So I can order something that I would never imagine. Why should you put chili in that? And they did. And that just gives me so much stress, way into the night. So it gets hard to sleep and so on. And until maybe a couple of years ago, I had no idea of this. But when you see that the pattern is repeated, once you're eating chili, then I understand it. And
yes.
And so many people find out that the food that they eat will affect their stress levels significantly. So maybe you can't tolerate gluten or milk, that's the most common ones,
yes.
Or other foodstuffs that you can see that it will depend on what you're eating will affect your anxiety level. Because when your heart rate goes up, you feel more anxious. Just like when people drink alcohol and during the night, the heart rate goes up and you wake up in the morning and many of us can feel anxious, even if there's nothing particular that has happened,
Yes.
So our heart rate affects our level of anxiety also.
I want to go back because you've already shared so much with us, but I just want to go back for listeners who may not have been listening to the podcast for a while. Could you please briefly explain, firstly, the autonomic nervous system, and then, of course, the sympathetic and parasympathetic states of the nervous system? Could you start by explaining that for us? And then I'd really love to talk in more detail about heart rate variability so our listeners can have a good understanding of what it is that we're focusing on.
Yes. So we're talking about the autonomic nervous system, as you mentioned. This is the nervous system at the base of our brains, the really primitive on and off system that I call in my book, I call it an inner living fossil, because it's just still there, basically functioning like it has for hundreds of millions of years. And we share this system with all vertebrates, all mammals have the same basic on and off system, which is the autonomic nervous system. That works, even if we're sleeping, even if we're unconscious, it's regulating the processes in our body at the basic level. And it consists of two parts. It's the sympathetic part, the survival mode, that will help us to mobilize forces, towards hunting something or to escape if we are being hunted, which of course was the way that we were living for hundreds of millions of years, even before we became human beings. And the survival mode has, of course, helped us survive, but we couldn't stay in that mode all the time. We needed to recover from the struggle. So we also have the parasympathetic part, the restful part, and that is the state where we recover. And we are made to be maybe 2 or 3 hours a day in the stressful part, and then the rest of the day in the restful phase. And the good thing is that the heart rate can tell us which state we are in, because if we are in the parasympathetic part, then when we breathe in, the heart rate goes up a little bit because there's more oxygen in the lungs, and it kind of takes advantage of that and pushes through a bit faster. And then when we breathe out, the heart rate slows down a little bit so that the heart will rest a little bit because there's less oxygen in the lungs. Just measured in milliseconds, but it's detectable by the wearables. But when we are in the stressful mode, in the sympathetic mode, then the heart will beat as steady as a metronome because it kind of, the physiology is so that even if there's less oxygen in the lungs, we still need all available forces because we don't know if this creature is going to survive the next moment. So we have to use all the forces, even if there's less oxygen in the lungs. And this variation between heartbeats, that is heart rate variability. So you want to have the ability to be in the parasympathetic state. And that is why it's good to have a high heart rate variability, a high variation between heartbeats on the in-breath and out-breath. And that is how the key to the fact that these wearables can detect the state of your autonomic nervous system, which is so important for overall health and, of course, for anxiety, for the psychological health.
And that's why lengthened exhale can make such a difference for calming our system, can't it? If we can lengthen our exhale, we can start to slow our heart rate a little and move out of the sympathetic state into the parasympathetic state. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, that's right. So your most powerful way to have kind of a lever into your system is the breath. And by having longer out breaths and particularly slower breaths, that is a way to calm yourself down. It's kind of an ancient biological signal to your body that it's calm out there. So we can start the recovery process, like this organism is breathing slow. It cannot be a war going on right now. There shouldn't be any lions nearby as it's breathing so slowly,
Yes.
And it will kind of trick the body into the parasympathetic mode. So
yes, it's so powerful. One of the things that I know you've written about are the hidden stresses. When we ask somebody, how are you going? Particularly, we've come through not long ago a very hectic time of the year where if you ask someone how they're going and they feel a bit stressed, they'd say, oh, I've got a lot of organisation to do, or I've got a lot of social events, I've got a lot of work to get finished. And there are some obvious stresses, aren't there, in our day-to-day lives. Obviously, we know that alcohol can have a great bearing on our physiology in terms of our sleep and our mental health. What are some of the other hidden stresses that we can understand a bit more about in general terms, but also we can then, I guess, talk about them in terms of measuring how they are going to affect our heart rate through wearable technology?
Yes, absolutely. And Christmas in Australia is a bit on the opposite, of course, from the Christmas time in Europe. It's hot, I would assume.
Yes.
So you would have some surprising stressors in Australia in particular. So if it's quite hot outside, that will stress your system. So heat is one of the worst stressors for the body because the body will work hard to try to lose the heat by speeding up the heart rate and trying to sweat and get the heat out of the system. So heat is one of the surprising stressors. It stresses us more than we would think.
Right.
But also in Christmas time, it's often more alcohol. Before Christmas, at least in Norway, there's lots of parties, and every workplace have a special party, And often it's the period of the year with the worst heart rate variability. So when I see the heart rate variability over a season, December is the worst month for many people, mainly because of the alcohol, that they're drinking more occasions to drink alcohol during December. But also in Norway, it's because there's less sun exposure at that time. So that will also lower our physiological resilience as there is less sunshine. That should be okay in Australia. So I would actually be curious to see a December month in Australia because you have the sunshine, which will make you stronger. In addition to that, of course, you're eating more food. At least we do that in Norway the whole month.
Yes.
There's usually more food also, which can also affect the stress levels.
Yes.
So there's actually quite a visible dip in the heart rate variability when it comes to Christmas. And that is also because now in the new year, maybe a lot of people have New Year wishes, things they want to change, New Year resolutions. And that is actually, at least in Norway then, is not the best time to do that. But maybe in Australia, as you have the sunshine and you may have a better heart rate variability because of that, maybe it's easier actually in Australia. I've never thought of that, but at least in Europe, we start with the New Year's resolutions at the time when our heart rate variability and our willpower is the weakest. Because heart rate variability is also coupled to willpower. The worse heart rate variability you have as a sign that you have a stressed system, the less willpower you have to use, when you need to change your lifestyle.
Is that so? Well, goodness me, that is so interesting. And I can tell you two things about our beautiful country here. There is so many people who are vitamin D deficient and supplementing, which is, I know, a huge problem. Just, I think simply because of the fact that we as a population generally don't spend nearly as much time outside as we once did. And that's probably a generational change you've seen. And also, when it comes to New Year's resolutions, we're equally very, very poor at sticking to them. So it's so interesting that you're telling us that the heart rate variability is, and just reminding listeners that what we mean by heart rate variability is that there is a difference between the heart rate when we inhale versus when we exhale. It's measured in microseconds, as Dr. Færø mentioned earlier. Whereas when we are stressed and our sympathetic nervous branch of our nervous system is activated, there is no difference. It's like a metronome. No matter whether we're inhaling or exhaling, the time between heartbeats is the same. And so what you've just shared about willpower and heart rate variability being coupled is really interesting because there's so much change that people can make. And one of the other things we know is that there's not a lack of information in many senses, is there? I mean, a lot of people know exactly what they need to do, but it's that willingness and that consistency and that motivation to do it and to continue to do it. And if you're trying to start something at a time of the year where your chances are greatly affected because of the previous stressors, be they alcohol or food or family staying with you over Christmas and all of the other things that come with the festive season, you're not setting yourself up for success, are you?
Yeah, but that may be different than in Australia because there's a difference in your heart rate variability in the winter compared to summer. And the sunshine is not only for vitamin D, it's also so many other physiological processes in your body that will help you in the summer season. We know that the sunshine will release nitric oxide in the skin that is stored in the skin, and with the sunshine it's released and is helping your blood circulation. And with the sunshine, your mitochondria works better because they are releasing melatonin, which is an antioxidant that works inside the cells, and many other processes that will happen. So, and we know that heart rate variability is a measure of willpower because if you go to, for example, alcoholics, the ones with the lowest heart rate variability will the ones that will, after a period of being sober, start drinking again. So, these are very interesting facts, I think, about heart rate, how we can use heart rate variability to measure different things, like willpower.
Yes. So, I'm fascinated. With the wearables, the three main wearables that I'm familiar with from your work are the Whoop Band, the Oura Ring, and the Garmin watch. The Fitbit, where did the Fitbit fall amongst the wearables, or is that sort of obsolete now?
Yeah, I think it's okay. I think it works okay, but it's not as good as these other three other choices, I think. But it's I think it's a number fourth, in my priority.
Okay.
People will want to have different kind of wearables. So maybe Fitbit would be fine for a lot of people, but it doesn't give you as much detailed information in the daytime like Garmin can do. It will give you a number of your heart rate variability over the night and will give you, a good measurement of that, but not so much during the daytime so that you can micromanage and find exactly what stresses you. But many people would not want to do that. So for them, the Fitbit is perfectly fine.
Yes, yes. Thank you for sharing with us a little bit about the fourth choice. Of the other three, perhaps if you could please briefly describe each and how it's worn, and then can we dive a bit deeper into kind of like the benefits of the ones that you like to recommend?
Yeah, I think we have at least these three, as you mentioned, the Whoop Band, the Garmin watch, and the Oura Ring, and they all have their different pros and cons. When it comes to the Whoop Band, what is really great about the Whoop Band is that it will have no screen. So for people who don't like to have a screen to watch and they may be obsessed about, the Whoop Band will just be there as a bracelet and detecting the heart rate variability throughout the day and night. And the Whoop is a great way to see how well you have recovered on the recovery score compared to how much strain you put on your system. So you get the recovery score in the morning, and then you can see throughout the day, how much stress that you put on if you open the app on your phone. If you don't open the app on your phone, it's just recording your lifestyle, without you having to check it all the time. And they have an excellent podcast, and you also can put in, they will have a morning journal every morning where you put in what you have been doing that day. And through artificial intelligence, the Whoop Band will tell you a weekly report and a monthly report and tell you what is good that you're doing and what is bad, for your recovery.
Right.
So it will use your numbers and your lifestyle and give you a report back. That is really useful. And you will be kind of in the red zone if you have been struggling and there's been too much stress, and then you will be in the yellow zone, which is in the middle, of course, and then in the green zone that you will try to be most of the days. Okay. And of course, we're supposed to be flexible. So we're supposed to have hard days and easy days. We just have to have a sustainable lifestyle overall so that you cannot have too many red days. It will be detrimental for your health level, right?
Yeah.
So I really like the Whoop Band also.
There's a purchase cost and then there's an ongoing membership, correct, with the Whoop Band?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's just an ongoing membership.
Oh, okay.
So they will just send you a new one. So actually at the moment I'm waiting for the Whoop 5 to come out. I hope it will be soon.
Yes.
And so you're kind of just paying a membership and they will send you a new one once there comes a new edition of it.
Okay.
So I don't remember the price, but it's in American dollars. I think the price is like $300 American dollars, I think, or so for every year.
Okay.
So it's a good choice, and it's also a good choice if you have another watch that you want to use. Maybe an old analog watch, or if you don't want to have a watch, and so on. Or if you also, like I have used it as kind of a second opinion to my Garmin. So I've had actually, for most of the time, I had both the Whoop, a Garmin, and an Oura Ring. And then so it gets it from three different sources. And the Oura Ring is also great. It's particularly good for sleep quality and sleep phases. So that's the most accurate when it comes to sleep phases. And of course, as a ring, it's less intrusive. It's you don't have to have it on your wrist, and it will give you a very nice recovery score in the morning and a sleep quality score. And you can also put in the data of what you have been doing that day. So it can also use artificial intelligence to find out what in your lifestyle seems to help you and not help you. But my favorite, is I want to kind of micromanage my stress level. That is the Garmin. So that will give you a stress level in the moment. You can always push a button and you will see the stress levels in the moment, which is good because say that you're in a meeting, you're wondering if you are stressed, you can push the button and you see, oh, wow, my stress level is 60. And I want to get it down, then you can see it and do breath work, breathe slowly, and you can see it going down in real time. So that is just like having a speedometer in real time for your stress levels. And as you can see on the graphs, on the pulsecure.com, we have this lecture where you can see how I use those graphs to identify, when something stresses you and how much. That is so useful because then you can find out, do some detective work and find out what is stressing you and how much does a cold bath affect it. Maybe, for example, your Whoop band and Aura ring, when you put in that you have had a cold water exposure, you can they will give you the result. But on the Garmin, you can see exactly how your body is responding to it, with the blue graphs if you're in the parasympathetic mode and orange if you're in the stressful mode. So it's much more easier to navigate your nervous system with the Garmin tool. Yes. That is, at the time being, is by far the best one. And it's also cheaper one actually than the alternatives. I would think that you will have a great Garmin watch for like $300 or maybe even $250.
That's
so that would also be the cheapest one.
That would be So I mean, who doesn't love that when the best recommendation has the lowest price? Which particular, just out of interest, which particular model Garmin is it that you are loving at the moment?
Oh, there are many different ones. I really like the best one, the Phoenix 8 that I'm having at the moment. But the ones that you will get, for example, Forerunner 265 or Forerunner 255S, many women like it smaller. They're also great and will show most of the signs. It will have the more expensive ones will have better battery life, better screens, and some of that. And they will have something called the training readiness that can help you determine whether you are fit for training. So there will be different smaller details, but already from those, I would guess that $250 you would already get those that have heart rate variability over time. And that is the most important thing, that you can show you the nightly heart rate variability over time. Then you can, for example, see that the week before menstruation for women in that age can be a tough load, physiological load on your system as a COVID infection. So it's more easy to see it when you have that heart rate variability over time.
Yes. It's fascinating. And what I'll do is I'll put the link to the video lecture that you sent to me in the show notes. So anyone listening, if you're interested to go and have a look at these graphs, but just to paint a bit of a picture for you. So there's two colours, there's the blue and the orange. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Færø, but the orange is the sympathetic and the blue is the parasympathetic measurement. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yes, yeah. And so, Dr. Færø, one of the images that you had, so it's essentially a graph sort of showing all of the changes in the nervous system, and it's color-coded. But you had one particular one that stood out for me where you were looking at the changes to your heart rate variability before and after or during a cold shower and sauna, and kind of rearranging the order of the way that you were using those recovery strategies. Could you share a little bit with us about what it was that you were testing and what you found through the changes in HRV?
Yes, in Norway, going for the sauna and ice cold water. I'm actually doing it later today. It's a favorite pastime, particularly in the later years here in Norway. So, and being in the cold water is triggering the parasympathetic system. So it both having a cold shower and being out in the icy cold water is a way to calm down your nervous system. It will bring your heart rate down quite a lot. And that is why so many people feel that when they go out in the cold water, then they feel better. But when you can also see it on the graphs, then it becomes also more motivating to do that, at least for me. That when I know that this is a way to, because it's always uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily need to be uncomfortable. You can also use I'm not sure the temperature in the Melbourne waters, but even if it's 20 degrees Celsius, it can still be triggering for that same effect. So that is nice, but you don't need to be out in the water for a longer time to get that effect. So, and of course, if you're in the sauna, that is a lot of stress. But you can kind of go in and out from the sauna into the water and in and out again. You can regulate the stress levels quite accurately if you have the watch with you. So that's very interesting. Also, the effect of the temperature, which is not only when you are in the water, but also your room temperature at night is also important. So you can often see that the low temperature, maybe 15 degrees Celsius at night, can be a lot better for your sleep quality than having a kind of warm and cozy, that can maybe feel warm and cozy, but for your stress levels and your recovery during the night, it may not be as good. And it's a kind of a question also, why is this effect so strong? Because this effect on inflammation with the cold is really the strongest effect that we can see, I think, on the wearables. And that is probably because in the ancient times, at night time, it was cold, even in Africa, where we come from. We all come from Africa until I think maybe 50,000 years ago, when they emigrated out of Africa. And it was cold at night. So it was warm during the day, but cold at night. Particularly, if you don't have any clothes, or that we didn't have most of the time.
Yes.
So maybe that's kind of the physiological trigger to put on the parasympathetic mode. And it's also a way to avoid losing heat, to slow down the heart rate and constrict the blood vessels to avoid losing heat. Anyway, it will dampen the inflammation, which is why athletes use it after exercise, to dampen the inflammation caused by the exercise. But we can also use it to dampen the inflammation from all other causes, even from alcohol, even from menstruation, even from the menopause. So many women in the menopausal age can tell that this way of cold exposure is helping them a lot. So the cold and the breath work is the most important breaks for your system that can slow down the sympathetic activation and put you into the parasympathetic mode.
I wanted to ask you about the cold exposure, because I've recently been experiencing cold exposure in various different ways. And the first time I was in an ice bath at a recovery centre, and I think the temperature was about maybe 8 degrees, and it was cold, but it took my breath away. It wasn't. The next time I went back, I think the temperature was down to about 3 degrees, and that was painful. And so just going back to the first exposure, when I first hopped in, it sort of took my breath away, and I felt I was experiencing heightened stress. I felt like my sympathetic nervous system was going into overdrive, and I was just like, focus on your breath. I just literally had to shut my eyes and put my head in my hands and just go, right, lengthen the exhale. Can you help me understand that kind of response? Because it felt like a shocking response. Felt like my body was shocked when I hopped in that cold water. And so, help me make sense of that, please.
Yes, so that is exactly what happens. That when you come into the cold water, it's such a shock response. Then you'll get a high heart rate in the beginning there, and your whole body will react to it, and you will start, to breathe fast. And that is the most important thing when you go out into the cold water, to breathe slowly, calm yourself down. What I do actually in the cold shower, which is also uncomfortable, is to sing. Because when you're singing, you cannot breathe that fast,
Yeah.
So at least it's important in the cold exposure to breathe slowly, calm yourself down. But the heart rate will go up initially, but after the session, after that, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, maybe if in the 8 degrees water, you may be in for, 2 or 3 minutes. And then after that, for hours, your heart rate is lower. So in that minute, particularly if you're in the 3 degrees water, it's intense. But also after that, the heart rate will be low. You will feel better. So it's triggering. It's a little bit like fasting. It triggers both the adrenaline and calms you down. So it sharpens you really in many ways.
Can you please help us to understand firstly what you meant by fasting in that graph, what that represented? Was it no food or limited calories? And also why the huge difference? Why are we so much calmer when we're fasting?
Yes, the fasting graphs in the video was actually the same as in your case, that it's a fasting mimicking diet. And I think at that day, I had 700 or even more maybe calories, but you still get the fasting effect even at that
that's good to know.
level of calories. Yeah. And that it was a huge surprise to me the first time, because when I started to see the results on my wearable, because it felt uncomfortable, and I was used to that. If it feels uncomfortable, it's usually a lot of stress. But in this case, when you are fasting, you feel uncomfortable, but your parasympathetic system is triggered, so that the calmest days is when I don't eat. Or eat as little as 500 or so calories. But it's kind of sharpens you, and it's probably also back to the ancient ways that we have been doing, that an animal that would have been weaker when they are hungry, would have been extinct. So being hungry, you would need to be able to sharpen your senses and be stronger to get the food that you needed to hunt or get somehow. So this is also, once again, we're hacking our ancients' operative system in these ways, by fasting, by cold, by breath. And also in fasting, we have the autophagy, that we are starting to recycle our poorest cells, the ones that are on the verge to becoming cancer cells. They are being eaten, instead of the food. So if we just keep giving new food to our body, then it will start to use that. But once we are fasting, it will start to eat the zombie cells or the senescent cells instead of the food that we are providing. So it's a good way of kind of resetting our bodies also, in addition to that we can feel more energy and feel clearer fasting, than eating. So I used to think that to get energy, I needed to eat something. That is, of course, what the food industry wants you to think. But now I know that to get energy, the best way for me may be not to eat anything. Yes. And you can also see it on the wearable, that you could see that you're in the blue zone, your body battery. In the Garmin watches, they have a body battery system,
right,
that tells you your physiological available energy, and that will stay at the same level. You will not go down as you usually would during a day.
Gosh.
And I compared it to a Christmas dinner, which is one is quite heavy on your system. It can be, your heart rate goes really up, and it can be a tough load on your system.
Yes, it is. It is just, the data says it all, and you've totally convinced me, because as I asked at the beginning about sort of the anxiety about, becoming a little bit obsessive perhaps over it, I can't wait to get started and better understand my physiology and also kind of the impacts of my behaviours and my choices. But the other thing that I know will help is that, yes, cold water is uncomfortable. I do appreciate that you've given us a nice range in terms of temperature, because I think Port Phillip Bay, which is the big body of water that Melbourne is right close to, is probably about, I'd say about 14 or 15 degrees at the moment. And that's so nice compared to a 6-degree ice bath. But it is uncomfortable. Fasting is uncomfortable. You do feel hungry. And you can say to yourself, I know that this is important. I always say to myself, you're making a choice. You can eat whatever you want whenever you want. You're making a choice here, and it's a values-aligned choice for your health. But when you can see that represented in the data, that would be just so motivating, because you can actually, you've got this representation of the health benefits right before your eyes within 24 hours of doing it.
Yeah, and these things, because we are in a kind of a comfort crisis, in the start of the podcast, I said that some of the problem is that we're also weaker physiologically than we used to be, and challenging yourself with fasting, with cold exposure, with the breath, being able to regulate the breath, with exercise, movement and so on, getting better sleep, and so on. That is strengthening our physiological bodies, so that we can tolerate more stress. So some of the reason why we cannot tolerate so much stress is that we are weaker. We are so comfortable, and that is not helping us in the long run. So using those, it's called hormetic strategies like fasting, exercise, cold exposure. It's strengthening our physiology in our bodies so that we can tolerate more, both mental and physical challenges that we, of course, meet every day.
All of these things, they do require us to be outside of our comfort zone, and you're exactly right. It's very comfortable, the lives that most of us live, and it's very easy just to kind of cruise through the day, sitting on our bottoms a lot of the time, reaching for whatever food and drinks available, and being at the mercy of our wants and needs and the dopamine fueled activities and behaviours and foods and drinks. And so it's such an important conversation that we're having. And I want to finish by asking you if you could tell us two things. What are some of the quick wins that we can get, the instant rewards as you describe? And then if you could please tell us about your book, because I know that that's going to be such a resource for anyone who's ready to go, right, I actually want to make some change. I've got some control over what's happening, more control than what we probably realise in terms of our health and our longevity. So, yeah, if you could please talk us about a few quick wins, maybe a couple of quick changes that we can make, and also, tell us all about the book, please.
Yeah, so the quick wins, that would be to regulate the consumption of alcohol. So when you find that alcohol is the worst stressor, it's so much easier to stay away from the unnecessary ones, when you could just as well have a cup of tea, in the evening instead of a glass or two of wine, that you will only be drinking when you feel it's worth it. Because when you get the physiological price of alcohol, most people are shocked, really, when they see that. So it's like you're going to the store and you see a wine cask and it's 10 times the price as you thought, So then you start, not using it as often. So that would probably be the most important. And then a lot of people will find that late night meals is some of the worst thing you can do to your stress levels. So most people find out that they want to stop eating maybe 3 hours before they go to bed, and that will help their sleep quality a lot. And then also to make sure that you get 7 to 8 hours of restorative sleep that you can see on your monitor that is restorative. So that would be probably the most important ones. And then do also some physical activity, so that do some exercise. It's also very important to build a stronger body, to build stronger mitochondria in your bodies, and that will help you. And that when you do that, you will feel more refreshed in the morning. You will have more energy then the whole day to make better choices and to be able to do what you want. And the good thing is that these strategies with a better heart rate variability will also help you to avoid getting the lifestyle diseases that plague us. So both in the short run, while being more refreshed, having more energy, so that's a good part that you will feel immediately, but also in the future, your chances of getting cancer or dementia or Parkinson or heart disease or metabolic syndrome goes down when you have a better heart rate variability.
Oh.
So, yeah.
So many reasons for us to look at measuring our heart rate variability. For people who are listening, and I do still want to come back to the Pulse Cure, to your book, but for people who are listening and thinking, gosh, I would love to be able to do this, but financial stress is a challenge for a lot of families, and the cost of some of these devices is quite high. Is there a low-cost alternative? The Fitbit, you said, would that be one of the cheaper alternatives when it comes to a wearable?
No, the cheapest would also be Garmin,
but
that would be Vivo Smart 5.
Yes.
But that wouldn't have heart rate variability over time, but it would have most of the other features. So it would have the body battery system. You would be able to see the stress level in the moment, and most things. And that, I think, you would get down to $150, and then you would, and of course, you would probably be able to get them secondhand also, because people keep changing their watches, and buying the new ones. So it will always be something cheap available as a secondhand, I would guess.
Yes. Oh, that's another great suggestion. Thank you. Before we finish up, I'd love for you to please share with us more about the book. And unlike most books, you've talked about the book as an expedition, haven't you?
Yeah, the book is, because to change your lifestyle, even with the wearables and the book, is hard. So that is why you need to kind of brace yourself for some struggle and prepare it, be prepared to need some information, some knowledge. We have been talking some about it, of course, now, but you need to be knowledgeable about the expedition that you're going out to do. And so that's why I call it an expedition, and I call kind of sleep, exercise, like different stages of the expedition. So because it is hard to change your lifestyle, it's some of the hardest things we can do. We need to put some effort into it on a daily basis and plan it, So, and that, of course, when you can measure it, it makes it so much easier. So what you can measure, you can manage. It's like going out into the outback without the map or GPS. It will get hard once you have the map or GPS. You can find your way, and it's the same way in this, because this is kind of an expedition into your physiology, an undiscovered area, a new continent, so to speak, that you are diving into and discovering. And we are all different. That is why it's so important too, that I can see, because in Norway it's just been a wild bestseller, and it's translated into 8 languages, the book. So there's so many people contacting me, and I can see that we're all individual. So this is a way to find out how you are reacting to a certain thing and how much you are reacting to it. So it's an individualized medicine and preventative medicine. So, because the problem is that usually we as doctors, we are waiting till somebody gets sick and then we do something.
Yeah.
But this is preventative medicine, so that you can do something beforehand so that you don't get sick.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the new way of medicine where technology can help us. And the interesting thing is that the modern technology kind of points backward in time, so that the more that you live in that ancestral way, the better your health will be. So that is also an interesting thing, I think.
I agree with you.
So in the book, then I'm talking about the different ways that you can do that. So it will help you to find the ways that so many people have used the wearables to have a better lifestyle. And I tried to make it very actionable and easy to read, and explain it so that everybody can understand what they should do and how the wearables can be used to help you to achieve that. And the book is available at Amazon and also as an audiobook, an Audible. So many people would like to listen to it, and it's also an ebook. So both the audiobook and ebook would probably be the easiest way to get to Australia, because I don't think they stock it in Australia. So we'd probably need to get it sent all the way from England or the UK. So
yes, and you could be listening to it while you are exercising or cold plunging.
Yes, absolutely. It could be hard cold plunging, but to concentrate on what you're listening to. But afterwards, you could begin.
That's true. That's true. No, you've given us so much. Oh goodness, I'm really grateful for everything you've shared. I'm so pleased to have been able to talk with you and bring your expertise to the podcast community here. And I just want to say a huge thank you for your time. Where can people learn more about you and your work, please?
Yeah, so they can go to thepulsecure.com. There's some information there, and hopefully there will be more coming, in the coming year.
Great.
So we're building up this website. And also on Instagram, I'm on Dr. Torkil, Dr. Torkil. I'm on LinkedIn and other places as well. So they could be able to contact me and see what I'm sharing there. So
I'll put all of those details in the show notes, and I'll put links to each of the wearables that we have been discussing, so that if you're interested in going and having a look and learning more about the different wearable technologies that we've been discussing, they'll be there for you as well. So Dr. Færø, thank you again for your incredible knowledge, expertise, and bringing it to us, and for the work that you've done over such a long period of time to really help improve the health of all of the populations that you've worked with. So a huge thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's nice to reach even down under. Thank you so much.
Totally. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for listening. Thank you for joining me. I would love to know what you think about this episode. So please join me over on Instagram or LinkedIn to share your ideas and your thoughts and your takeaways and any questions. And we can dive into a discussion there. And please follow Dr. Færø's incredible work. I'll put those details easily found in the show notes wherever you're listening to this podcast. Thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Okay, bye. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review. To keep the conversation going, I'd love you to join me over on Instagram. You'll find me at Dr. Jodi Richardson. Also, if you'd like a copy of my free 5-day mini email course, Calm Your Anxious Brain, then jump over to my website, drjodirichardson.com, and you can sign up down the bottom. I've really enjoyed having your company. Thanks so much. See you next time.